The sun had barely climbed the Lagos sky when the compound behind St. Michael's Cathedral began to buzz. Chairs were being arranged in neat lines, white cloths thrown over plastic tables, flowers pinned to pillars, and the sounds of distant, talking drums rolled through the street like thunder on water. It was her wedding day. Amara sat in a small room behind the church, quiet, calm, her hands resting in her lap. Her dress was simple. Not cheap, but not flashy either. Soft, ivory cotton, stitched by a quiet woman from Owerri, someone her late mother had known. The veil was handed down from her grandmother, and the shoes were unbranded flats, polished till they shone. There was no gold, no diamonds, no chains hanging from her neck, only a small wristwatch she had worn since university. Outside, guests whispered already. "Is this the bride? This is what she wore?" A wedding without gold. Even market women wear better on Sundays. She looks like a church usher, not a bride. But Amara heard none of it. Her mind was elsewhere. Inside the groom's chamber, Jason, her fiancé of 9 months, was not smiling. His suit, custom-made from Italy, hugged his shoulders perfectly. His hair was neatly trimmed, and he wore 2 gold rings, one on each pinky. He stood before a mirror, lips twisted, pacing slowly. "Bro," his cousin muttered, sipping a malt. "Drink. Are you sure about this girl?" Jason didn't answer immediately. He just stared at the mirror and then said coldly, I told her. No one should embarrass me on my wedding day." His mother, who had just walked in, frowned. "What's the problem now?" Jason turned and hissed. "She's wearing rubbish. She didn't even bother to get gold." "What will people say?" His mother waved her hand dismissively. "It's not about dress, Jason. Marriage is deeper. It's about respect, Mama," he snapped. "You think it's small boys that are coming for this wedding? Chairman himself is here. Chief Baco is seated already. And she wants to come out like a worker from the church choir?" Just then, his phone buzzed. A text from his bank, alerting him of a failed withdrawal attempt. He ignored it. At 10:34 a.m., the first sign of drama appeared. Pastor Mark, an old man with thick glasses and a voice like thunder wrapped in honey, was handed a small note. He read it twice and frowned deeply. He looked up toward the crowd, then slowly stood from his seat and walked to the back. Something wasn't right. Meanwhile, the bride stepped forward, holding her bouquet loosely. Her eyes didn't move left or right. She walked with quiet dignity, like someone who knew she didn't need to perform for anyone. Jason stood beside the altar, breathing heavily. The ceremony began. Prayers were said, hymns were sung, and the pastor began his homily. But Jason didn't hear a word. His eyes stayed fixed on the dress, on the lack of gold, on the empty ears and the plain neck. And then it happened. "Does anyone here have a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony?" the pastor asked. Silence. Then, as if some demon climbed into his bones, Jason turned sharply to Amara, and in full view of the congregation, including his own father, the press, and the dignitaries, he raised his palm and slapped her. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. Women screamed. Some guests gasped. The old choir mistress nearly fainted. Amara stood still. One cheek reddened, her bouquet slipping from her hand. "Shame on you," Jason spat. "You disgrace me today of all days. What nonsense is this?" He turned to the guests and shouted, "Look at her! Is this what a millionaire's bride should wear?" Then silence. Dead silence. Until one voice spoke, deep, cold, steady. "You're not the only millionaire in this room, son." All heads turned. It was Mr. Richard Owalabi, Jason's father. The man rarely spoke, rarely attended events. But now he stood tall, straightening his agbada and stepping forward slowly. "What did you say?" Jason asked, confused. The old man walked straight past his son and stood beside the bruised bride. Then he looked out at the crowd. "This girl, here," he said, "is more valuable than all the gold you fools are shouting about." Murmurs spread across the room like fire. "I did my own digging," he continued, "not because I doubted her, but because I wanted to know why she walked with the kind of quiet confidence only royalty carries." He turned toward the pastor. "Pastor Mark, please allow me to speak fully before you proceed." Pastor Mark, still stunned, simply nodded. 3 years ago, Mr. Owolabi continued, Amara lost her parents in an accident. She sold their house, paid off their debts, and opened a textile business. Quietly, without noise, she expanded to Enugu, then Port Harcourt, then Abuja. Last month, her business crossed 100 million in value. The room gasped. Jason's jaw dropped. "She dressed simple," the old man said, "because she doesn't need to shout to be heard. She wore no gold because she knows her worth is not hanging from her ears. And you, boy, you slapped her on her wedding day." Silence again. "I came here to see my son get married. But now I see. I came to save a woman from a grave mistake." He turned to Amara. "My dear, I will not force you. But if you want to walk away now, you do it with your head high. And if you want, I will walk with you." Jason stumbled backward, like the ground betrayed him. Amara looked at Mr. Owolabi. She didn't say a word. She just stepped down from the altar and walked away. Slowly, silently, with the man who, moments ago, had been the groom's father. The church stayed frozen. Outside, the sun shone a little brighter. Outside the church compound, the air was hot. Too hot for a day like that. The crowd that had once gathered to celebrate now whispered in hushed tones, eyes darting, phones buzzing, some pretending to console Jason while secretly recording, the scandal unfolding before them. Amara walked slowly, her hand light in Mr. Owolabi's. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. She simply walked like someone who had expected nothing from anyone, and lost nothing in return. Mr. Owolabi opened the back door of his black Lexus. "Please," he said, voice soft, "just sit. Let the dust settle." Amara nodded once and entered the car without a word. Inside the car, there was silence, but outside, Jason had collapsed onto a chair. One of his friends poured water on his head. His mother shouted at the press to stop filming, but the damage had been done. The slap had traveled from church pews to Twitter threads. The insult had gone viral before the ceremony was even over. Inside the Lexus, Amara sat straight, staring at nothing. Her cheeks still stung, but her pride didn't. She hadn't come to that wedding looking for praise, and she hadn't left with shame. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" Mr. Owolabi finally asked. Amara looked at him, her voice flat. "Because who I am should never depend on what I have." He nodded slowly. "That's rare." Amara didn't answer. Then he added gently, "You remind me of someone, my late wife." That was the first time she blinked. Not out of surprise, but respect. "I know pride when I see it," he said. "Not the loud kind. The kind that walks away quietly without lowering its head." The car rolled forward. Amara didn't ask where they were going. She didn't care. All she knew was she wasn't returning to that altar. Not today. Not ever. Meanwhile, at the church, Jason was pacing like a madman. He looked at his phone again. 3 missed calls from his bank. Manager. Something was off. He checked his wallet. A folded check his father had given him weeks ago was missing. His face drained of color. He turned sharply toward his mother. "Where's Dad?" She looked at him like he'd grown horns. "How should I know? You embarrassed the family. You slapped a woman at the altar. You think he'll stay and clap?" Jason's hands shook. "He took her." She shrugged. "She left with her dignity." Can you say the same? The crowd had mostly dispersed now, but the news didn't. It was running. Faster than guests, faster than gossip. Within minutes, a few photos from the wedding were already trending. One image caught everyone's eye, Mr. Owolabi holding Amara's hand, leading her away like a king guiding a queen through fire. By 1:45 p.m., Amara found herself in a quiet estate in Ikoyi. The car pulled into a wide compound surrounded by green hedges and fountains. She looked around slowly, then turned to Mr. Owolabi. "Why did you bring me here?" He gave a small smile. "This is where your wedding should have been." "I don't understand." He parked the car and turned fully toward her. "You don't know this, but I investigated you," he said plainly. "Not because I doubted you, but because something about your silence unsettled me." Amara raised a brow. "You met Jason through a business summit," he continued. "But you didn't talk about your business. You let him talk. You let him assume. I saw how he treated you when he thought you had nothing." She looked down briefly. "I once built an empire from scratch," he said, voice firm. "Lost it. All. Gained it back. But I learned one thing. How a man treats a woman when he thinks she's beneath him tells you everything." Amara nodded. He smiled again. "Now I ask you, what would you like to do next?" She didn't answer right away, but after a pause, she asked, "Do you believe in second chances?" He chuckled. "For him?" She shook her head. "For me." "Then you already know the answer," he said. "You gave him a chance and he threw it away. Now you give one to yourself." By evening, Jason was in his father's office, red-eyed, disheveled, humiliated. "Daddy, you're siding with her?" Mr. Owolabi didn't even look up. "No, I'm siding with decency." Jason clenched his fists. "She disrespected me." "You disrespected yourself. A man who lifts his hand to a woman does not deserve applause. He deserves therapy." Jason's face twisted. "Are you really going to let her ruin me?" "No, son," Mr. Owolabi said coldly. "You did that yourself." He handed him an envelope. "You see this check? It was never for you. It was hers. She earned it the day she walked into this house and didn't ask for a dime." Jason stared. "And if you ever speak to her again without respect?" His father added, "I will make sure your name disappears from every board you sit on." That night, Amara sat alone in a guest room upstairs. Her phone buzzed, a bank alert, the check. She closed her eyes and smiled for the first time all day. She wasn't just walking away from a groom, she was walking toward herself. Morning in Ikoyi felt like something else. Soft light through clean windows, silence humming like peace, not emptiness. Amara sat by the window, a glass of warm water in her hand, watching the slow sweep of gardeners across the front lawn. The house was quiet. Too quiet for a woman who had just escaped public disgrace. But disgrace, no matter how loud it tries to walk in, doesn't stay long when you have dignity holding the door. Her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown. "Number, you embarrassed me. I won't forget this. Jason." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. She didn't block the number. She didn't respond. That man had already said too much with one slap. She dropped the phone, stood, adjusted her wrapper, and walked downstairs. In the dining room, breakfast was already laid out. Pop in a silver pot, steaming akara in a bowl. But she had no appetite. Mr. Owolabi sat at the head of the table, reading a newspaper. "You didn't sleep, well?" he asked, eyes not leaving the paper. "I slept enough," she replied. He folded the paper slowly and placed it aside. "I spoke with a friend last night. Banker. He says you were one of the top early investors in Bitwell Holdings. Is that true?" Amara gave a small nod. When I was 22, I put in N120,000, my entire NYSC savings. He raised a brow. That N120,000 is now N78 million. She said nothing. Why were you hiding it? He asked gently. Because the money never gave me value, she said. I wanted someone to value me, not my bank balance. He smiled. And you thought Jason would? She smiled sadly. I thought maybe, until the wedding day showed me who he really was. He looked at her long, quiet. Then he said, "Come to the company today. Let me show you something." She nodded. At Owalabi Enterprises, the staff moved in respectful silence the moment the black Lexus pulled up. Amara stepped out, calm, clean, composed, like scandal had never touched her hem. She wore a modest navy blue gown, no jewelry, no makeup. But still, everyone noticed her. Some whispered. Most wondered. A few already knew. They entered the lift. Floor 9. Executive floor. Mr. Owalabi led her into a large office. Glass walls, high ceiling, art on the walls that didn't shout wealth, just whispered class. "This was my wife's office," he said softly. "It's been empty for 6 years." Amara looked around, unsure. "She built this company with me," he added. "Not with money, with mind. And you remind me of her." She turned to him, surprised. "I'm not offering you pity," he said quickly. "I'm offering you partnership." Her brows lifted slightly. He sat on the edge of the desk. "I know you're building something. Quietly, slowly. I've seen your tech startup, your investments, your ideas. You don't want to be a wife to a millionaire. You want to become your own." Amara blinked. He continued. "But the world doesn't respect quiet builders until someone else announces them." "And you want to be that someone?" she asked. "No," he said. "I want to give you the keys. What you build with them is your own story." She didn't respond. Not right away, but something shifted in her eyes. "Do I get an official offer?" she asked finally, voice calm but serious. He smiled. "You already have it." She nodded. "Then I'll think about it." As she turned to leave the office, he added one more thing. "By the way, there's a board meeting next Friday. Jason is on that board." She paused. "I assume you'll be attending?" he asked. She smiled without turning. "Absolutely." Meanwhile, Jason was sitting in a lounge, surrounded by friends who used to laugh at everyone else, now laughing at him. "You see how your bride switched you for your own father?" One of them chuckled. "You go explain that one to heaven. Bro." Jason drank without speaking. His eyes were sunken, his reputation bleeding. Another friend added, "Omo, that girl played you like jazz. She left the altar with your father's hand and your account's respect." Jason threw the glass across the room. It shattered. Enough. They all went quiet, but the damage was done. And for once, Jason couldn't slap it away. Friday came fast. Amara walked into the Owalabi boardroom like a woman returning to a land she never begged to enter. The board members turned, some in surprise, some in admiration. Jason's jaw clenched. Didn't greet him. She didn't need to. She greeted the board, nodded respectfully, and took a seat beside Mr. Owalabi, not as an assistant, not as a guest, but as a stakeholder. Jason tried to speak. She raised a hand slightly. "Let's proceed, Mr. Chairman," she said politely. Jason's lips parted, but nothing came out. This wasn't the bride he slapped. This was the woman he could no longer touch. Not even with words. Jason sat still, but his leg bounced under the polished mahogany board table. An old habit from university days, back when he was still trying to prove himself. Now, the room he once owned with loud confidence had turned quiet in a different way. His name carried weight, but not the same kind anymore. Amara sat beside his father like she belonged there. Not loud, not overdressed. Not aggressive, just present and powerful. The meeting began with quarterly reviews, shipping updates, real estate ventures, expansion plans. Jason tried to focus, but his eyes kept shifting toward Amara, who now had a pen in hand and a printed report in front of her. His report. She was reading it like it was written by a stranger. When she finally looked up, it was only to ask a question. "Mr. Adebayo," she said politely, addressing the logistics head. "Line 4 of your summary says the Apapa warehouse operations were halted in May. Why wasn't that disclosed in Jason's original report?" The room stiffened. Jason's lips twitched. "Because it wasn't relevant to storage loss, late dispatches, broken cold chain supply." "Not relevant?" she asked, voice calm but cutting. Mr. Adebayo cleared his throat. "Actually, Ma, she's correct. We lost $27 million in delayed shipments." Amara gave a small nod and sat back. Jason stared at her. "So you came here to embarrass me now?" Amara turned her head slowly, eyes sharp. "I came here to protect the company's money." "Unlike you." He opened his mouth to reply, but his father cut in. "Jason, enough." He sat back, humiliated. Again. Later that afternoon, as the board members filed out, Jason caught up to Amara in the hallway. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, voice low, almost desperate. She didn't stop walking. He stepped in front of her. "We were supposed to build a life together." She looked at him. Not angry, not bitter. Just honest. "You slapped me, Jason." He shifted. I didn't mean to. I was under pressure. Everyone was watching. You wore something that wasn't expensive enough for your ego," she said, cutting him off. "You weren't angry because of my dress. You were angry because I didn't make you look rich enough." He didn't deny it. "Your father saw something in me," she continued. "You saw nothing," Jason scoffed. "Oh, so now you and my father are a team?" Amara gave a tired smile. "Not everything is a conspiracy, Jason. Some things are just correction. You failed the test you didn't know you were taking." She walked past him and didn't look back. That evening, Amara stood at the balcony of the guest wing, her temporary room not too far from the main house. The Lagos skyline blinked in the distance. The city was too loud to keep secrets, but it knew how to respect quiet victories. Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number again. "You think you've won. Just wait." She sighed. Blocked it this time. She turned toward the sound of a knock. It was Mr. Owolabi. He entered with a wrapped parcel in his hand. "I thought you should have this," he said. She opened it carefully. It was a file. Inside, a business license, her name on it. Amara Holdings Limited. "I spoke to a few people," he said. "You need full control, capital, your own space, no strings, no obligations." She stared at the paper. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I know," he replied, "but that's why you deserve it." She sat down slowly. This is too much." "No," he said gently. "It's just the beginning. You've been hiding your light for too long. Let it shine now. Fully." There was silence between them. Not awkward, just deep. He looked at her again, something softer in his eyes now. "I never imagined," he said quietly, "that the woman who was supposed to marry my son would be the one saving my legacy instead." Amara looked up, surprised. He shrugged. "Life is strange, but some losses bring better gains." She didn't answer, but her eyes glistened, and for the first time in weeks her heart didn't ache. It beat steady. Clear. The next day, her story hit the news. Bride walks out after groom slaps her, becomes director of his father's company. The blogs feasted. The comments flooded. Some mocked, many praised. Jason's friends distanced themselves. His accounts froze, the result of some financial discrepancies discovered during board review. Owalabi Enterprises cleaned house. Amara took her seat on the top floor, and a rumor began to swirl that she wasn't just the bride who walked out, she was the woman who walked up. Sunday morning came like a gentle reminder. Soft light through sheer curtains, birds too stubborn to respect city noise, and the calm after a long, ugly storm. But for Amara, this wasn't just a new day. It was the final page of a chapter she had once begged to rewrite. She stood in front of her full-length mirror, adjusting the white cotton blouse she had picked herself. No stylists, no approval from society. Just clean, simple, and sharp, the way she liked it. Her trousers were crisp, her heels low. Her earrings were the same small gold studs her mother gave her at 19, before the woman passed in a cold hospital room, whispering, "Never let anyone make you feel less, even when you have nothing." Today, Amara had more than something. She had everything she earned, and some things that found her along the way. As she stepped into the courtyard of Owalabi's estate, the staff paused. Not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. They greeted her with soft nods and quiet respect. No gossip in their eyes. No pity. Just reverence. Mr. Owalabi was seated in his garden chair under the mango tree, reading the morning papers. He looked up as she approached. "You're leaving," he said, not asking, knowing. "Yes," she replied, smiling softly. "My new apartment's ready. I have a meeting with my lawyer at noon." He nodded, folding his paper. "You don't owe me anything, Amara." She tilted her head. "Neither do you." "But I gave you space," he said, tone firm but not forceful. "And I filled it," she answered, a quiet pause, then something rare. He chuckled. "You're sharper than I thought." "I had to be," she replied. He stood slowly, walked toward her with the grace of a man who had lost pride and found perspective. Then he reached into his pocket and brought out a key. "This was your mother's building?" Amara blinked. "What?" "I traced it. Took weeks. Hidden in legal mess, seized by one of those corrupt banks when she died." He pressed the key into her hand. "I bought it back, renovated it, signed it over to you." She stared at him. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," he said again, smiling. "That's exactly why it's yours." Her hands shook, but she didn't cry. "Thank you," she whispered. He took a breath. "There's one more thing." Now she turned serious. "If it's about Jason—" "It's not," he said firmly. "He's still dealing with himself. You don't owe him attention. But if you ever need anything, legal support, capital, even silence, you have it." Amara smiled again, a real one. "I've learned to fight quietly, sir, but I won't hesitate anymore." He nodded. "That's the woman I saw." As she stepped outside, the gates opened. Cameras were waiting? Of course. The news had gotten louder by now. Gossip blogs, business networks, church aunties, WhatsApp groups. The bride who walked away. The millionaire who slapped his bride and lost everything. Pastor stopped the wedding, and now she's the one in power. But Amara kept walking. No sunglasses, no publicist, no tears. She got into her car, a modest Lexus she paid for herself, and pulled off quietly. Not in shame, in strength. Meanwhile, Jason sat in his condo, half-furnished, overpriced, with no soul left inside. He had been scrolling endlessly on his phone. Everyone was talking. Nobody was defending him. Even the pastor who officiated the wedding had released a quiet but clear statement. Respect is the foundation of marriage. No man has the right to raise his hand, ever. Jason's friends had gone silent. His father had stopped answering calls. And the worst part? The woman he tried to break was now the woman everyone wanted to be or marry. A week later, at a quiet art gallery opening in Lekki, a tall man in a tailored Ankara jacket approached Amara. "I know who you are," he said. She turned, raising an eyebrow. "And I know who you were," he added, smiling gently. "But I'm more interested in who you're becoming." She smiled politely. "And who are you?" He extended a card. Tosin Adeoye, architect, founder, dreamer, investor, and admirer of quiet strength. She chuckled. "That's quite the resume," he nodded. "Only one line matters." "Which?" He pointed at her heart. "That I see you," looked at the card, then at him. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something honest. Months passed. Amara launched her own fashion line, Zur, meaning born again in her late mother's native dialect. Strong cuts, neutral tones, soft rebellion. It sold out within 2 weeks. She hired women from low-income communities, trained them, paid them well. People whispered that the brand wasn't just about fabric. It was about the woman behind it. The one who was slapped at the altar and stood up straighter after. In a quiet interview on Channels TV, when asked what advice she'd give to young women facing shame and betrayal, Amara paused, then said simply, "Don't let pain teach you to hide. Let it teach you how to walk away, with your head high and your heart intact." And the country listened, not because she was loud, but because she was true. And sometimes, the quietest revenge is rising.